Great. All right, I'll jump in and people can join late. If you ever have a question, feel free to put it in the chat, raise your hand, and there will be kind of a question answer Q&A at the end. I'll save some time for if I didn't cover anything that you wanted to have some information on. Just kind of starting out, so I'm Colin Meidel, the manager of the fitness center here at the Arden Hills headquarters. I'm not a registered dietitian, but I am certified to kind of explain some of the nutrition information to people. So today we're just going to be covering nutrition as a broad and diving into a couple topics which you were able to fill out in the link in that survey that I put up before. And most people thinking about nutrition, they think it's only a tool for weight loss, but actually it's for fuel, it's information, it's recovery for the body. And whether our goal is weight management or for energy, it's going to be a similar approach. It's going to be balanced, consistent, and sustainable. So nutrition as a whole, why does it? It's going to boost our energy, boost our mood. Nutrition is going to influence our cellular health, our immune function, our hormone regulation. And poor diet is actually one of the leading factors in heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, and some cancer. So it's going to support our long-term health if we put awareness into overall nutrition. It's going to fuel us physically. It's going to mentally fuel us for performance. And it's going to help prevent chronic diseases. And there's a lot of studies that show that dietary improvements can significantly reduce inflammation, improve our quality of life, even without weight loss. And that's something I'll explain a little bit further down the road. All right, so what are nutritional guidelines? Now, in today's presentation and in general, nutritional guidelines are going to be based on the dietary recommendation and guidelines for Americans. They are updated every 5 years. So currently we're within kind of the 2025 or 2020 to 2025 guidelines. And their aim is to promote and prevent diseases in all Americans. And the key focus is going to be on balance, variety, and nutrient density. The emphasis for the past 5 years has really been focusing on nutrient-dense foods, targeting kind of all life stages, limiting our processed sugars, some more awareness on saturated fats, and which I'll talk about when we get to our fat section, kind of decreasing our overall sodium or kind of emphasis on sodium intake, and then limiting alcohol or having it within moderation, if at all. So I put some of those guidelines up here, but we'll be jumping into some other things quickly. All right, so the foundation of nutrition comes from kind of building a healthy plate. Now, the My Plate, which you're looking at right now, replaced the food pyramid back in 2011. So it offers more of an inclusive model for kind of a breakdown of our overall plate consumption. So in the current recommendations, when you look at your plate, reflect back on the past week or the past 2 days for what your plate might have looked like, especially that's perfect because it was kind of the weekend. So just kind of focus on at this graph in front of you, do you think your eating is similar to what is portrayed? If not, that's okay. And that's kind of why this webinar is here, to give us a little more information on how we can approach nutrition. But when looking at our plate, you'll see that primarily most of our plate is going to be vegetables. And I know that's not a lot of current Americans' diets. Some of it is, which is great, but oftentimes is not the case. And when we're looking at our plate, this should relatively be the same for all 3 of your main meals throughout the day, if that's kind of your eating habits. But most of the plate's going to be our vegetables and our fruits, followed then by our grains and protein are going to be fairly even. And when, I guess, strictly looking at this graph here, focusing on kind of that protein piece. If you think of your normal eating or consumption or your normal recipes, do you think of protein as just kind of an add-on to your meal, or do you think as a primary force of your meal? If usually it's an add-on, that's kind of the awareness of this webinar as well, to shift that over into maybe we could focus a little bit more on protein first, then we put our grains second. Of course, most of our plate's going to be fruits and vegetables, but still oftentimes protein kind of gets put in the back burner. It's like, oh, I'm having spaghetti and meatballs versus I'm having meatballs and spaghetti. So that's a little mindset for you. Otherwise, included in this as well is going to be adding water or dairy products as well. And this graph is also meant to kind of include healthy fats. So avocados, nuts, olive oil, because those are all part of our unsaturated fats. Okay, yes, for the main food groups. So these are, again, daily recommendations. And we're going to be jumping into the macronutrients here on the next slide. But fruits, so fruits can be frozen, they can be canned. If we have an increased amount of fruits in our diet, it's going to help decrease our risk of certain diseases. cancer. It's going to help give us vitamin C, fiber, potassium. Recommendation for women is 1.5 to 2 cups. And then for men, it is 2 to 2.5 cups. For those vegetables, they're going to be rich in potassium. They can lead to healthy blood pressure, help with our cholesterol if that's a problem. Recommendation is 2.5 to 3 cups for women, and men is 3 to 4 cups. For grains, that's going to be, they're always going to be rich in protein, not as rich as meat sources, but for those who maybe are vegetarian or vegan, it's a great alternative to, or put emphasis on, more of the grains. In general, grains are important to have in our diet, but that's going to be great for our B vitamins. Our zinc, magnesium is going to help support immune function, build strong bones, and when you're looking then at protein, now I will jump into more in very quickly, but as a basic overview for protein, 0.4 to 1.3 grams of protein per pound body weight is what is recommended. Now, there will be differing of opinions for that, but that's kind of just going to be a broad basics. And then for dairy, it's going to help for maintaining our bones, our teeth, main source of calcium, vitamin D, and then around 3 cups is what is recommended for that. Moving into then the breakdown of macronutrients. Sorry, I just had a quick question, which I'm going to address real fast here. So question, are there issues if protein intake is higher than fruits and vegetable consumption? Not short answer, no. And now there are a lot of situation factors that kind of go into that, but it depends on our overall diet. And I can talk a little bit about diet later, but I guess I might need a little more information kind of on your eating for that. But base value, so if your plate looks like this, where 1/4 of it is protein and then 1/2 of it is fruits and vegetables, great. If, for example, let's say that's reversed, where 1/2 of your plate is protein and then 1/4 of it is fruits and vegetables, the negatives could be there as we might not be getting enough fruits and vegetables in our overall diet. It would be less on the emphasis that our protein intake is higher. And depending on our height, our weight, our sex, our physical activity, those all really matter when looking at our main macronutrients, which is a perfect segue into carbs. So carbohydrates, they're really important. They're going to be, when broken down into sugars and starches, they're going to provide our body with the energy required to live, exercise, think at a normal capacity. Carbohydrates are going to be our brains and central nervous system's preferred energy source for fuel and functioning. And when looking at your carbs, most of them you want to think about from high quality sources. So there are simple and complex carbohydrates. And when looking at that, a simple carb is going to be something that we receive quick energy from. So this usually is going to be broken down by the body very quickly. You're going to get a little bit of a spike in blood sugar probably before it kind of comes back down. And that's not always necessarily a bad thing. So looking at fruits and vegetables, that can be the quick, simple carbohydrate, kind of on the more processed side. If you're thinking, more of the processed sugars, honey, looking at this example here, a biscuit, juice, those are going to be also kind of within the simple sugar category. Then complex carbohydrates are going to be where we have a little more fiber in them, making it a little bit slower to digest. And the body's going to be able to process the sugars over an extended period of time, which does not typically, it's more of a stable blood sugar and won't really cause that spike. An example of those would be oats, wheat, rice. So things from kind of the starchy carbs category on the left here. Also within our carbs, so there's, again, simple and complex, which I just explained. And then there's low and high quality carbohydrates. So the low quality is going to be typically higher in calorie count, less fiber, and a little bit lower in micronutrients. And typically those are going to be processed items. And then our higher quality carbs are going to, and not necessarily higher in calorie, but they're going to have higher fiber count. They're usually going to carry one or more macronutrient, and there's going to be little to no processing to get kind of the final product. So carbs as a whole, you want about, again, this varies on gender, activity level, and fitness goals, but around 45 to 65% of your total caloric intake should come from carbohydrates. And there is kind of a big I would say carb scare, or people, especially if you're looking at weight management, are kind of like, oh, carbs are scary, carbs are bad, and kind of avoid those. They're actually, again, our main energy source that our body uses to function. So not necessarily a bad thing, just everything is fine within moderation. All right, I think that's all I want to mention for this one. Oh yeah, otherwise for carbs, fats, and protein. So when you look at the grams and how many calories are associated with them, carbs are 4 grams per calorie, as are protein, and then fats are 9. Moving into the protein. So protein, also very important. It is going to be our main building block for most tissues in our body, our bones, muscle, cartilage, skin, blood, building block, for enzymes, for hormones, vitamins. For protein, you're going to have complete protein and an incomplete protein. So complete protein is going to contain all essential amino acids. So something like our meats, eggs, soy, and then incomplete protein is going to lack some of those essential amino acids, such as beans or nuts. Intake, again, this varies based on gender, age, activity level, fitness goals, but overall recommendation is 10 to 35% of your total caloric intake should come from protein. Breaking that down into a kind of by your weight, I'm a big advocate. So 0.4 to 1.6 grams of protein. Now, that is a very wide range. And you're going to see, if you speak to other registered dietitians, in which I'm not, you also see varying answers. So I advocate for having a little bit higher protein intake, especially if you are focusing on weight management. So there really has not been found to have a significant downside to having higher protein consumption in our overall diets, especially, over long terms. But if you do have more protein, if you focus on emphasis protein, it's going to be more satiating, and thus we'll be able to eat a little bit less all in all if we do focus on higher portions of protein. If you want to look then at kind of how to section out your proteins, on the screen here I have kind of the hand system for navigating portions. And this is not necessarily just for meat, but I have it on here just for kind of the portion for protein sizes. Okay, again, this is then 4 calories per gram when it comes at the calorie content. Looking at your fats. So fats, again, fats are also important. They're going to be another major energy source for our body, and they're going to aid in vitamin and mineral transportation throughout our bodies. Going to help our organs with control growth, hormones, insulin regulation, our basic metabolic processes. It's going to affect our blood lipid profile, so the HDL, LDL, cholesterol, and which then you'll have your labels of good or bad. So HDL being the high density lipid protein, and then our low density lipid protein. Looking at the straight recommendation, 20 to 30% of total caloric intake should come from fat sources. When breaking down between the 3 types of fats, are unsaturated, saturated, and trans fats. Less than 1% should be trans fats, so kind of avoid if possible. Saturated is going to be 5 to 10%, and then the remaining or full 20 to 35% can be from mono and polyunsaturated fats. Looking at, like I started with the trans fats. So those are considered the bad fat. They're going to increase your LDL. So again, that low density lipoprotein, and they are going to be associated with type 2 diabetes, and they're around mostly because of fried foods and oils. And when oils is heated under repetitive heat, that's kind of when they become more of the trans fat. It's usually the cheaper oils at fast food places, or just when frying food. So if possible, avoid trans fats. They have no health value. Looking at then your saturated fats, those are going to occur naturally in animal products like meats or cheeses. And contrary to a belief kind of in the 90s, there used to be more of considered a bad thing, the saturated fats were. But that's not really considered the case anymore. So you want moderate saturated fats within our diet. So we don't have to go crazy, but it is good for our overall health within reason. Then we have our unsaturated fats. Those are going to be the clean, healthier fats. So the mono unsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, they're going to help with insulin regulation, transportation of hormones, and nutrients around our body. And typically those are going to be found in oils, avocados, fish, and they can help lower bad cholesterol. Now, one thing to, stress again, Fats are important for our overall health. And then the other thing is that when you look at oils and cooking, each oil is going to have a different smoke point. I won't specifically go through the individual ones today, but I do encourage you kind of looking up what oils you use at home and what degrees their kind of tolerant smoke point is, because they can turn from a good unsaturated fat into an unhealthy fat if they are heated for too long or for too high at certain temperatures. So that's something to be aware of. All right, eating for energy and what to focus on. Energy is going to be calories. It's the main movement and function of our overall body. So complex carbs, those whole grains and legumes are going to be used for sustainable energy. If you do need some sort of blood sugar spike, then again, that's where you go for the more simple carbs. But all in all, when focusing on body energy, it's going to be the sustainable complex carbs in which fuels our overall body. And with kind of those complex carbs, they're going to help our glycemic index. So the load that our blood sugar or energy takes is more beneficial from the whole grains to help maintain stable levels for longer time. Also for our energy, lean proteins. Again, as I mentioned, it's good for muscle repair, muscle recovery, and it can play a key role in our overall metabolism. Actually, with metabolism, a fun little quick fact to put in there, our metabolism doesn't really slow down as we age. As you hit 65, you'll see much more of a decrease, but really it'll kind of work up, peak around 25 to 30-ish. And then from there, it's a very steady decline, but it's not a severe decline. So if you noticed either body weight fluctuation or, the common saying, oh, my metabolism just slowed down, that's usually not the case. It's more lifestyle changes that kind of adjusted our overall body weight because it is a very small decrease, but then it does have a more drastic decrease when we do hit 65. Also for energy though, hydration is key. So aiming for at first 60 to 80 ounces, otherwise about half your body weight in ounces. And also then kind of thinking hydration and caffeine. So caffeine is fine within moderation. So kind of thinking of body energy, but excessive caffeine can disrupt our sleep and increase our anxiety. So again, moderate our caffeine, try not to focus on that, build more of a steady sleep routine instead of just emphasis on added caffeine. Otherwise, again, with energy, limit added sugars and ultra processed snacks. Yes, they can cause the bump in blood sugar, which occasionally might be needed for your overall training, but in general, focus on those complex carbs for our body's energy. All right, reading the label. I trying to make it easy. So nutrition facts. I do encourage, depending on wherever you are within your nutrition or wellness journey, nutrition labels are a great thing to slowly introduce or just to fully introduce into your wellness routine. At first, I like to kind of just start out, just compare labels. And when comparing labels, there's a few things to put an emphasis on. First, checking the serving size. So oftentimes we might have, let's say, a taco seasoning packet. One of those, there might be 4 to 6 servings within a little taco seasoning packet. But, and I sometimes do this as well. Depending on the meal I want to make, I put the whole seasoning packet in there, which is totally fine. But just be aware of our overall consumption, and checking the serving size is important to do that. When focusing on nutrition labels, try to prioritize our fiber, our protein, added sugars, and sodium, because those can sneak up on us pretty quick. So if we really focus on those main 4 areas, that can be very helpful. When you are looking at the percent of daily value, looking at kind of the graph number 4 on the picture here, 5% is going to be considered low and 20 plus is high of your daily value. And that's going to be on a 2,000 calorie diet, because that's typically where most Americans will fall into. But of course, there's a lot of variables that depend on what caloric needs your specific body has. When looking at fiber, aim for 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day. It's going to help lower cholesterol, help regulate our blood sugar. We do need to be hydrated for fiber to work effectively and for our body to process it. So make sure we also focus on our overall hydration. Working down to the ingredients. So the fewer the better. Ideally, and what's most important is the first 5 ingredients on a nutrition label. That's going to be where most of the food items are from, and try to be able to understand most of them possible. So if you look at a nutrition label and you're like, I have no idea what any of this means, then I might not want to be consuming it. And then maybe I look for alternative, and that kind of where it goes to comparing nutrition labels. So if you have the store brand, or maybe the more popular brand and then an off brand, just take a look and see what differences there are. Maybe there's a few less ingredients on one, or maybe there's a little bit lower sodium content in another. And sodium is a key contributor to high blood pressure, especially in canned or packaged foods. So that's important to just look into a little bit further. The low fat is not always healthy. So make sure that's why, again, we're checking the whole label. So even if it is low fat, what is the other content of nutrients? How much fiber is in it? How much protein is in it? It might be super high, low on protein, super high on carbs, not necessarily a bad thing, but just be aware of that. The low fat may not always be, is there a substitute in there? Are they adding in something else within the food that I might not want to consume? And the FDA kind of standardized labels were updated in 2020 to better reflect portion sizes and daily values. All right, smart grocery shopping tips. So shop the perimeter. Typically, the perimeter of most stores is going to be the produce, the dairy, the meats, and the whole foods. And if we're trying to bring more food awareness into our overall lives, which makes sense as you're here in this webinar, that's a great place to start. So avoiding processed foods or limiting them. We don't have to cut them all out because that wouldn't be sustainable. But just if we kind of shop the perimeter first to kind of find the staple of what are those whole unprocessed foods we might be looking for. Planning meals before shopping. So meal prep, meal shopping list, or kind of planning for your week ahead is very, very important and helpful. Even if you need to be flexible, that's totally fine. But maybe make it like a Friday to-do item. So 5 minutes before you end your day, or somewhere in your Friday schedule, if you just put a note in your calendar, all right, let's plan a shopping list for the rest of the week. Or maybe that's the time if you're at home on a hybrid schedule, kind of survey the kitchen and pantry, find out what I have and what can I make recipes just with that, or what do I need to kind of modify. But making sure we have a list, it can help reduce over purchasing or impulse buys by like 20 to 30% on average. So it is important to kind of plan and prep ahead. Don't shop when we're hungry. Our hungry eyes are larger than our stomach, and oftentimes we will end up buying more, and we don't really want to waste food. So it's typically better for your overall health and wellness if you can shop for smaller, maybe go out, plan for 2 to 3 grocery outings versus just one big haul. Of course, everyone's schedule is a little bit different. You might need different things, but that is important kind of within the planning stage. Looking at then the stock staples, whole grains, frozen vegetables, canned beans, healthy oils. When looking at your grocery list, I think the staples that you might want to have around the house, whether it's snacking options or kind of your safety comfort foods that align with your health and wellness. Quick question here for grain and bread options. What is better go to, multigrain or whole wheat? Great question. Looking at bread in general, again, think back to avoid process if possible. We don't have to cut it all together, but take white bread and whole grain bread. No, that wasn't the example, but in the processing process, the bran has been removed from the wheat, and that kind of makes the white bread over the wheat bread, and that bran is a lot where our fiber, more nutrition content is. So, wheat over white. Looking at multigrain or whole wheat, kind of comes down to preference. I know a lot of people are not a big fan of the multi-grain because you kind of taste some of the grains. I would probably say it really comes down to personal preference. You might find a little bit more nutrition benefit from a multi-grain bread, but at the end of the day, if you are just putting awareness into your nutrition and trying to dabble in all 5 major food groups, 3 times a day, it's all right if you prefer white bread over wheat or wheat over multigrain. It's totally fine. It's just the sustainability of making conscious choices long term. So find what works within your wellness and kind of slowly start implementing something a little bit more, quote unquote, healthy. So personal preference, I would say multigrain would have probably a little more nutrition benefit than whole wheat. Okay. that's all I had for, I think, the grocery tips there. Realistic tips for busy schedules in the busy bee corporate world, family life, whatever our routines are, kind of working with people here within Land O'Lakes on their nutrition, their physical awareness, mental wellness. We have to be realistic. So part of that, and it can be challenging, but batch cooking or prepping ahead is very helpful. It can be hard to, again, find the time because we are so busy, but if we are able to prioritize that, it is one step to more awareness in nutrition, maybe eating out just a little bit less, and focusing on more what goes into our body. But research does show that meal planning is associated with better diets and better diet quality and lower obesity rates. So being able to have those kind of pre-prepped ingredients or pre-portioned meals can increase the likelihood of making healthier choices. And again, for the pre-prepped ingredients, that all goes back to our shopping. Make that list, plan our meals ahead of time. What do we have? What do we need? Try to shop smaller so that we're able to waste less and eat more of what's in our house. Grab and go options. So nuts, yogurts, fruit. Think of your options that abide by whatever diet we're currently trying to do, but that won't lead us to kind of over binge snacking or boredom eating. But if we kind of even pre-portion our snacks ahead of time, or again pre-plan those meals, we're going to be able to have sectioned out what we want to eat, so that when it comes to eat time, we're not looking, okay, now what do I have? What do I have to make? Because oftentimes that will lead to the easier option, which totally makes sense as we are so busy within our lives. Using a slow cooker or air fryer. I am going to provide a few links to some recipes, as well as a few PDF documents for that kind of coincide with the nutrition webinar here, which I'll share at the end. But that is also very helpful. I'm a big fan of slow cooker meals. Put it in the morning, go to work, come home, and it's done. Can't get easier than that. When looking at your kind of simple meals, the framework: protein, a vegetable, and a whole grain. Use that as kind of your groundwork to kind of remove the guesswork. So just kind of plan, what's my protein, what's my vegetable, what's my grain, when we're looking at that meal planning stage, and that is just one way to make it a little bit easier on ourselves. All right. Great question. So, Scott, quick study. One of my favorite free or unpaid apps for tracking. Excellent question, and I will be getting to that in a few minutes, so I will not forget about it. All right. Now, the nutrition myths busted section. So, these are some of what I believed are kind of the biggest myths within the nutrition realm. There are a lot more, but I thought I wanted to really prioritize these 5. So, number 1, carbs are not your enemy. As I mentioned before, carbs will, just by eating carbs, they're not going to make you fat. Just by eating carbs, they're not going to ruin our diet. Carbs, there's a big, scary image about them, but at the end of the day, food is food, and carbs are going to be our main energy source, so we don't have to put as much of a scary emphasis on them. They're not inherently fattening. Carbs support gut health. They support our metabolism, so they are important. You do not need to detox. Detox diets are not supported by science. The liver, the kidneys detox naturally, so we don't need to put overemphasis on doing this big cleanse, doing this detox. Of course, if it helps with your overall health and wellness, or your kind of belief for your nutrition, that's a different thing. But all in all, they're not really supported by our overall science. Fats are essential. Just choose our healthy fats. Fats are essential for, as I mentioned, hormone production, brain function. Focus on those mono and poly unsaturated fats. Supplements aren't a substitute for food. Supplements are meant to fill gaps, not replace meals. They are unregulated by the FDA. So just one thing to mention there. Now, looking at supplements, yes, there are supplements that, they're not regulated by the FDA. I'm not a registered dietitian, but I would recommend, taking a multivitamin, having protein powder in the house, because some of those things, it may just kind of, again, is a filler. I'm not solely prioritizing my supplements in order to get my nutrients, but it adds on for areas we're lacking, or, omega-3 fatty acids. Not a lot of people are reoccurring fish consumers, so that's one thing we're missing out on. So taking a multivitamin and an omega-3 it is beneficial to fill the gaps. And eating after 8 p.m. will not cause weight gain. And again, when labeling these, they're kind of read as they should be for the myths busted versus the opposite. But that's really not true. So if you eat after 8 p.m., your body doesn't magically digest the calories differently at night. At the end of the day, it looks at your total calories versus what we've burned that really matters. So late night eating can affect your sleep though, but it will not directly lead to weight gain. Typically, why if you think of intermittent fasting or kind of eating parameters, it's more about portion control or nutrition awareness over just the fact of kind of physiologically what happens during that time period. All right, personalize your plate. As you see here, this guy is very happy to be eating a plate of just fruits and vegetables, pepper, mushrooms, lettuce, grapes. That wouldn't be my go-to. So the world is your oyster, where it comes to physical activity or nutrition. You're going to have food preferences, and that is totally okay. What works for me is not going to work for you. I, would not be satisfied eating just this bowl of vegetables. I mean, it might be good, but I prefer other things in my diet, and that is totally fine to incorporate. So you're going to have food preferences, and that is totally okay. When looking at kind of, and also culture, tradition, those are going to have a big impact on how we eat. And that again, is totally all right. We don't have to strictly modify things outside of our culture or our comfort zones. Find what works best for you. And culturally relative or relevant food should be embraced and adapted for balance, not avoided. Food sensitivity. So you're going to have to modify. So say if you have a gluten intolerance, then, you're not going to be able to eat gluten. That's totally fine. But then for those who can tolerate gluten, there's not really a lot of evidence supporting that they should be avoiding it. So personalize your plate. What's going to work for me is not necessarily going to work for you. All right, nutrition for weight loss. The next few slides here were where I found the most interest in the survey. So I'm going to spend just, I guess more emphasis on these, and then we're going to get close to that Q&A section, which I plan for a lot of time to be there. All right, nutrition for weight loss. I have 6-ish tips here for that. Calorie deficit matters, but quantity matters more. So yes, the body kind of works in the way of math. Input to output. How much do I put in my body in the form of calories? How much does my body burn through activity, through existing, my base metabolic rate? So yes, calories in to calories out matters, and that caloric deficit will be needed for weight loss. But again, quality matters more. So you're going to burn more calories than you consume to lose weight, but you need to create that deficit. But it matters for energy, hormone stability, sustainability. So if you are in a very vast deficit or very strict diet, that's not going to be sustainable. And for your progress to be sustainable, you have to modify things at a rate that is able to be digested. That was, a little pun there. Over time. And you don't have to completely cut out everything. There's always a battle between our processed foods and our healthy foods, or quote unquote, whatever that is. At the end of the day, food is food. So we have to make sure that we are slowly working towards nutrient dense foods and put an emphasis there as your starting point over, what calorie deficit do I need to be in? Protein is your weight loss ally. So protein is going to help preserve your muscle mass during fat loss. Now, with that, you will need to put an emphasis on strength training. If you are on a weight loss journey, strength training is very important. If you are in a caloric deficit and we are not having some form of strength training, your body may prioritize weight loss from muscle loss. If we're not using it, we're going to lose it. It's an expensive tissue, and the body will be more apt to kind of get rid of that expensive tissue over the fat. So strength training is a great way to say, hey, I still need my muscle. So you can take some of the body fat instead. That's going to increase our satiety, or the satiation, our feeling full. So if we are trying to look at overall nutrition, that's why, again, I mentioned put an emphasis on that protein a little bit heavier. So if we are looking at weight loss or weight management, we're going to get more full by eating protein because it is much more dense than our fats and carbs. And again, for 0.6, it is, 0.4, but 0.6 to 1 gram per pound of body weight, depending on your overall activity. I again recommend striving for a little bit higher. So we get more satiated, and there's a lot, at least we're not then getting not enough protein. Fiber, it's going to help regulate our appetite. It's going to help with our blood sugar. Found in our whole grains, our legumes, our fruits, our vegetables, aim for 25 to 30 grams a day. All right, weight loss continued. Don't fear those healthy fats. Again, as I mentioned, the fat scare. They're going to support hormone health. They're going to help make meals satisfying. They bring excellent flavor. If you think of your meats, and when you cook your meat, there's always, some fat left over. There's a lot of flavor that's in there, and a lot of, again, that is probably saturated fat, but not necessarily a bad thing. All food is fine within moderation. You're going to find those in sources like avocado, nuts, seeds, olive oil, fatty fish. Hydration is important to support fat metabolism. So water is needed for lipolysis, the breaking down of fat. And sometimes our thirst cues are mistaken for hunger, which kind of can lead to either boredom eating or just kind of grazing in addition to our main meals, which grazing is not a bad thing, but everything's fine again within moderation. Looking at our overall intake is important. Sustainability changes over dramatic or drastic restrictions. Diets that eliminate entire food groups or drop you way too low in calories typically backfire in 90 or more % of the cases. So consider when you're looking at your diet, just adding in nutrient-dense foods, not just subtracting. So instead of building your list of what I can't eat, try to expand upon the list of what I can or should be eating first. Now, that being said, with kind of dramatic restrictions, your BMR is your basal metabolic rate, the base rate your body burns calories at rest. The body can kind of look at what I mentioned before, that math value, the input to the output. So the BMR, the base rate our body burns calories at rest, is a great thing to look at. So feel free to check out a site, TDEE, or Total Daily Energy Expenditure. There's going to be a lot of calculators out there, or if you look at MyFitnessPal or Calorie Counter, those apps are going to automatically kind of give you, here's what your average body will burn in a day. And it takes in your age, your height, your sex, your activity, and kind of to give you that predicting factor. Now, again, with dramatic restrictions, sustainable restriction is anywhere between, for weight loss, 1 or half a pound to 2 pounds a week. 2 pounds, that's stretching it a little bit long-term, starting out a little more achievable. But those caloric deficits are going to be anywhere between 250 calories to, I guess it would be 750 calorie deficit a day, or let's say 500. So 500 calorie deficit a day over the course of a week is 3,500 calories less, which is going to be a pound a week lost. And that is what research has found to be sustainable. If you jump way above that or drop your calories again below that, it's hard to sustain that. We're going to feel more fatigued, more irritable. So we're focusing on the long haul. We don't have to put ourselves through a lot of pain or discomfort or the people around us being more irritable by taking those dramatic reductions. Sustainable changes is what is beneficial. All right, fuel in the body. Eat balanced meals throughout the day to avoid those large spikes and the crashes in blood sugar. Focus on the complex carbs. Eat a few moderately portioned meals. If we have just one huge meal, you're probably going to feel that crash. So if we traditionally have a very large lunch, you get back to your desk and you're like, ooh, I could go for a nap. That maybe we look at what do we eat that day? What can I modify so I don't really experience the crash in the same effect? So include a complex carb, a protein, a fat at each meal. Now, looking at for your exercise, pre-workout snacks, 30 to 60 minutes before is what's recommended for kind of a workout snack. Simple carbs with a little protein. So banana, peanut butter, toast and egg, Greek yogurt, and berries. Gets you that little bit of a spike in blood sugar, which is helpful for your workout. If you aren't having as intense of a workout, though, you may not need kind of your pre-workout snack. It all depends on when you worked or when your meal was before you work out. So say you eat lunch at 12, you work out at 5 p.m. after work. You're going to want a little snack before then so that you have a little pick-me-up to take you through the exercise. post-workout meal. Combining protein carbs helps replenish your glycogen, support muscle repair. So chocolate milk, protein smoothie, protein shake, chicken wrap, rice and eggs are helpful for kind of post-workout nutrition. Now for protein synthesis or being able to maximize our body breaking down protein, that really happens twice during the day. When we wake up and after a workout. So make sure we prioritize a breakfast and also having something after our workout. That being said, if you don't eat, say you work out at 5, you eat dinner at 7, you're not really necessarily leaving, quote unquote, gains on the table by not eating right away. But it's important to replenish the body. Okay, iron, vitamin B supplements support energy levels from leafy greens, red meats, fortified cereals, eggs, lentils, and whole grains. Those are going to be important things to put an emphasis on. Our B12 or other B vitamins and iron is something that often is missing. So reinforced foods are a great way, reinforced cereal, to get some of those added within our diet because we might have lacking, which is also why, a supplement or a multivitamin can be helpful. As I mentioned a little bit, caffeine's fine in moderation, but don't rely on it to compensate for poor nutrition or sleep. If we're feeling utterly fatigued, we have a lack of energy during our workouts, lack of productivity during work, don't just automatically jump to energy drinks and coffee. That's just going to worsen our issue. Try to focus on your hydration. Try to focus on your sleep cycle, your overall nutrition to support that instead of just kind of relying on a crutch, because long term, that'll end up backfiring. Okay, some extra tips from me. One, off meal is not going to ruin your progress. And I also don't really like the phrase cheat meals. Food is food. At the end of the day, everything is fine within moderation. So if having, an off meal or a cheat meal planned in, I think that breeds kind of an unhealthy mindset around food. Food is food. We're trying to look at ways we can get more nutrient dense food, avoiding more processed foods. And if we, quote unquote, slip up, or if we eat more processed foods, don't be too hard on yourself. Food is food. We're all human. It's totally fine. Now, if that becomes a consistent habit, that is where you want to look at more awareness or modification. So habits should be broken. But otherwise, if every now and then we splurge on something that would not be considered within your wellness, don't give yourself too much of a hard time. It's not going to ruin your progress. Progress is also not linear, so expect plateaus, expect small fluctuations. You're not just going to drop straight down if you're looking at weight management. It's going to fluctuate. Sometimes it might go up, sometimes it might go way down, sometimes it might hit a plateau. If you hit a plateau for a month, you have not gained weight, you have not lose weight, you're just kind of coasting. Make sure you reach out, let me know, and I'd be happy to kind of take a look at your overall nutrition, physical activity, and see what the next steps are for breaking through that plateau. Because it might mean you need to just kind of reset or add something else into your routine. Instead of only focusing on your weight, try to look at your energy levels, how your clothing fit, your performance in your workouts, your mood, your sleep, your productivity at work. Those are the sustainable effects and the effects you're going to see before weight loss. So the scale might not change right away, but you're going to feel so much better from, this is, I guess, more weight management side, but you're going to feel different effects before the scale might see decreases. So don't be too hard on yourself if it's not really moving, because there's other areas that you're going to feel a lot of benefit from. Try to practice mindful eating. So eat slow, eat without distractions, tune into your fullness cues, listen to the body. It's going to tell you when we're full and when we're hungry. All right. So tracking and diets. Here we go, Scott. I hope you're still here and you hung around for it. So tracking, as I mentioned, TDEE is your total daily energy expenditure. Check it out. It's going to give you a baseline of our body's overall consumption. If you have a question with it, please feel free to come with me. I'd be happy to talk you through this because it can be a little bit confusing. So again, TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. Part of that is working out, so exercising. Part of that is our BMR, your basal metabolic rate, burning calories at rest. Part of it is the thermal dynamic effect of food, burning calories by eating food. We burn calories by doing that. So that kind of takes that in consideration with your activity, your sex, your height, your age, and spits out a value. Apps. So some of my recommended apps, Lose It, MyFitnessPal. I guess I should probably type this out. That'd be better, wouldn't it? Okay, so I can also send this out later so that I can continue going here. But Lose It, MyFitnessPal, MyNet Diary, MyPlate. Another good one. Calorie tracker, I think is what it is. My preferred preference, if I'll be honest here, is Lose It or MyFitnessPal, with MyFitnessPal being the number one. If you do download MyFitnessPal, the free, and these are all free apps that I'm mentioning, they did paywall their barcode scanner, but little workaround here. If you change your location outside the US, you will not have to down or pay for the subscription to access the barcode scanner. So I think that's a big win and a little fun nutrition tip for you. That's my preferred one because whether you're trying to gain weight, lose weight, or maintain weight is a good platform to do so. So example for like Lose It, if you transition from weight loss to maintenance or gaining weight, it's not the best app recommendation because they're strictly for weight loss. But all in all, they have perks, they have benefits. Try one out and try to stay consistent. Scales are helpful, not only just a weight scale, but also a food weighing scale. So we are pretty bad at gauging our nutrition just by eyeballing it. So if I just, grab a handful of nuts, I'm like, maybe it's this much, probably not. Scales. So if you're truly looking to maximize the gold standard of nutritional awareness is weighing and tracking our food. Now, flip side, I don't always stress that right away because it does put a lot of stress and strain over what we're eating and nitpicking everything. So that can quickly go into a bad mental health road. And mental health is almost more important. That's going to be more important than what else we got going on. So healthy mind, healthy body, healthy nutrition, they coincide as we slowly make progress over time. But that would be the gold standards, weighing our food, using a measuring cup and everything like that. Bars and powder, yes, that's processed. And it's really hard to hit our protein with just, hit slabs of meat. So incorporating some sort of protein powder or bar is helpful. Diets. 5 diet tips in which I like to stress and look at. Keep all food groups there if possible, and all macronutrients. So don't cut fats, don't cut carbs, don't cut our protein. We need all of them for our body, so utilize all of them. Incorporate nutrient-dense foods. Keep portion sizes in check. It's going to help hold you accountable for the amount of total food you consume. You want a diet that's easy to follow and not rule heavy. If you can't have this, you can't have that, you can't have fun, you can't have happy foods, that's not sustainable and it's probably harming you more than it's helping you. So avoid that diet. Now, that being said, there are a lot of fab diets that maybe they'll work for you, maybe they won't. So figure out what does work for you. Just be flexible on yourself. Ideally, try to avoid those real heavy diets. And make sure it's safe. Make sure you're not taking dramatic calorie cuts or fasting for extended periods of time. Okay. That hit all the content that I believe I want to. So I want to open it up now to a Q&A. Any questions over any topic in nutrition that you want to dive deeper into, something I didn't mention, something you want to refer back to, let's put that in the chat here. Feel free to either raise your hand, come off mute and just speak, or put in the chat. Otherwise, thank you for joining and have a wonderful rest of your day. I will take it off recording.